Hey Josh, thanks so much for joining me today. It's great to have you. Thanks for coming on. I'd love for you to officially introduce yourself and your title and your distillery, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Lindsay. Really appreciate it. So my name is Josh Opatz. I'm one of the co-founders of Young Yonder Spirits. We are a grain-to-glass craft distillery located in Hillsburg, California, just about an hour north of the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge. We make vodka, gin, bourbon, absinthe, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the upcoming releases we have in the pipeline.
Oh, exciting.
But yeah, so my wife and I started the business in 2013, and we've been, just slow rolling ever since, trying to build up the dream, so to speak.
So so you guys officially launched in 2013, but like, how did you end up in the booze business?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I grew up in Hillsburg, which is where our distillery is located. And growing up, my parents were in the wine industry. And so I had an early exposure to the beverage alcohol industry. Of course, when you're a kid, you look for ways to do anything but what your parents do and what they inspire you to be. And so when I was, my first kind of dream was to leave Hillsburg and go to a big metropolitan area and work in finance, which I did. We'll can get into that a little later. But yeah, so basically after college and grad school, I worked in a corporate career for several 10 plus years. And it was around, or maybe late 20s, early 30s, where it just felt like we were on the hamster wheel of,
Totally. Oh wait, I lost you. There we go.
Oh, sorry, my wife just called. So.
Oh, it's okay.
So yeah, we did basically the hamster wheel, climbing the corporate ladder, so to speak, and we'd come up and help my parents in their small tasting room on the weekends, and that was really the original inspiration for wanting to do something in beverage alcohol. And so we looked at, like I was making beer in my basement in the house in the city I lived in. Prior to any commercial aspirations of running a craft distillery. And it's actually a thing we did with our neighbors, just kind of like some camaraderie with our community in the city there. But my wife and I come up, it dawned on us that when we were up here in Sonoma County and working in a tasting room format, you just got an opportunity to meet such a diverse pool of people and just engage with people on such a personal level. And we just, it resonated with both of us because we both kind of had like our teams that we worked within and our kind of our management structure above us. Mm-hmm. But, you're kind of isolated in some regard on a professional level to who you get to talk to on a day-to-day basis. And we thought, hey, if we wanted to do something, whether it be in beer, wine, or spirits and run a front of house operation, we'd be meeting great new people every day and having lots of fun doing it. And so that I think that moment or that reflection point gave us sort of the path to start thinking about doing this on a commercial level. And so we basically committed to starting the business in 2013, but we continued to work in our day jobs in San Francisco until the end of 2016. So it wasn't this is not a business where unless
you could just like turn it on.
Yeah, unless you have just money to burn and life's good that way, you have to take time to do a lot of developmental research. There's a lot of permitting. You have to actually build out the facility, which I think a lot of times is underestimated when people are starting out in the industry in terms of like how long equipment lead times are, how long it takes to develop recipes, how long it takes to just refine the product and all the approvals you go through. So it was really at the end of 2016 where we had enough savings and we had enough inroads into the business to step into it full time, and we've been chipping away at it ever since. So
nice. So you quickly mentioned your spirit line. So how many spirits do you guys fully have? I know I think you guys went through some rebranding too, because is it still Hobbs Gin?
It will be basically in perpetuity until like further notice. But so we have different products currently with a couple in the pipeline. We don't want to get so wide in our portfolio that we're not really focused on anything, but I have just a couple more kind of passion projects that I want to just fill in the gaps on. And then I think
Nice.
like we just really focus on, we'll do special release club stuff, we'll do small batch experimental things, but I think my portfolio is almost fully evolved. But as of today, we have a classic vodka made from like California corn. We have a naturally flavored lime vodka. We have our Hobbs gin. We have our bourbon, and then we have an absinthe as well. So 5 in the portfolio today, and then I think 2 more makes it whole. So
Nice.
yeah. So, and everything, to talk to your point, everything right now is branded under its own product brand philosophy. So like the vodka is called Armont, and it has a very different brand story than our Hobbs gin, which has its own brand story. And so something that we learned just, over years of being in this business was that it's really hard to scale individual brand stories. And so because we're such a small mom and pop distillery, we're deciding to go back into a singular message and package design, with the exception of the gin. That really just explains our journey of being young and going yonder, which is the name of our company. So basically leaving white collar, good paying jobs to start a small business, and that's really what we want to. Yeah, we want to really message that effectively, and so the rebrand helps us, I think, just simplify what our story is and who we are. So
nice.
Yeah.
I love all of your brand stories. I think they're super fun, and but I also completely understand the forward progression.
Yeah, it honestly, I think in the retail environment is where we found it was the most challenging, because we couldn't achieve cross-pollination between products without the linkage of brand education that someone would personally need to do. And like, if you're looking down like you're in an aisle in a grocery store, you may see 4 of our products and have no idea that they're connected. And there's just a lost opportunity there, I think, that we're trying to rectify. Yeah,
I think that's a good lesson to learn. Yeah, I mean, it's
for sure.
It's a hard one, of course, but it's just the general or natural evolution, I think, of any brand, really. So I think that's great to constantly be learning and constantly pivoting to, make sure you're putting it all out front, and brand awareness is really key.
It is, and it's a lesson that we've just, like you said, just you learn over time. There's a lot of lessons you learn over time when you run a distillery, to be quite honest with you. So
I bet.
If you're not willing to change and evolve and adapt, it's tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
So our business is entirely different than what I wrote down in 2013.
That's awesome.
So.
That's awesome. Well, so where does some of your flavor inspiration come from? I mean, for example, you guys have an absinthe, and that is, I feel like a pretty distinct flavor that not everybody is super into, but yours is actually, it's really pleasant. And so like, where does some of that flavor inspiration come from?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'm really passionate about basically how botanicals express in spirits, whether it's from a fruit or an herb or a spice. And so we like to explore complex botanical spirits, and I think our gin and our absinthe are really good reflections of that. In terms of in terms of all of our spirits, I'll say, just from a philosophical perspective, I think we always start with what is the importance of the botanicals from a historical perspective, and how can we make them, how can we take a more modern approach to a spirit while maintaining the traditionalism attached to it. Like all these spirits that we're talking about, they've been around for hundreds of years, right? And so we try to respect that history, and I think our packaging, in our old packaging, I'll say, ties a lot of the history of each spirit to the product in the bottle. In terms of absinthe, it's a unique spirit for sure. So invented in Switzerland in the late 1700s, became popular in France, and most people think of it as a French spirit, but very dominantly flavored with like a licorice character that comes from black anise. So we knew that when there's basically the trifecta of botanicals that you need to use to call something absinthe, which are aniseed, fennel, and wormwood. So we knew like that those ingredients would be absolutely required into our spirit in the right proportions to just maintain its class identity, and also just make sure that we're making something that's historically representative, like historically accurate. The fun part about absinthe is it's kind of like gin. Is like gin has historical relevance in the use of juniper berry as the predominant character, but then after that you have every other botanical under the sun that you can use to differentiate your gin. And absinthe is really the same way. So once you get past the aniseed, the fennel, the wormwood, you sort of have the full range of these generally regarded as safe ingredients that you can use to differentiate your product. So I think, you know, when I was thinking about the absinthe, there's a couple of us like high level philosophies or ideals that I wanted to hit, which was absinthe is a high proof spirit. And I knew that I wanted to stay on the lower range of the acceptable range of that spirit, which is usually between 120 proof and 180 proof. So we're at 120 proof because even though absinthe nerds might think that's like, that might be a little on the light side, like you have to, I kind of view our absinthe as a bridge builder for like absinthe as a category, because it's softer, it's more approachable. It has a lot of like bright citrus, a lot of mint character to it, which I think are more adaptable flavors than just the licorice itself. And so I try to think of like, and we do a lot of iterative development on recipe design. So like
I've seen your guys' spice wall, and it's pretty intense in a positive way. It's awesome. I love that you guys are just like constantly playing with flavors, and I mean, all of your cocktails that you guys do in-house are delicious, and the stuff that you guys create is awesome. So I can only imagine the R&D and like finally landing on a recipe is probably takes some time.
It definitely takes time. It takes time, equipment, and just some basic knowledge of how botanical character evolves in a spirit. So I honestly think the hardest part about recipe development is the resting period between either a distillation or infusion, and it's like stable character. There is definitely a period of time where it's almost like the equivalent of bottle shock in wine, where like as soon as like wine gets agitated and it goes into a new vessel, it tastes different for a certain set of time. And like it can be, you know, like a red herring. It can like throw you off the path of like, I thought this would work and I'm really surprised it didn't. And then you're like, you know, you're stuck sort of spinning as though like, well, why didn't that work as well? And then you go back and taste it, you know, like 2 weeks or a month later. It's like, oh, that was exactly what I expected to happen. Actually did happen. It just was going through a resting phase. And so like that's the really hard part about recipe design. But yeah, I mean, so for the absinthe, it was really just like, okay, we knew we had these traditional characters that we were going to hit, and then how to basically add some softening characters and some balancing characters to make it approachable to a wider audience. I mean, absinthe is a very narrow audience to begin with, but like we're on the fringe on both sides. We can like, maybe some people that are, you know, hesitant but interested get, you know, they start to like it, and then we can expose them to other brands and ideas about how to use it. And then people who thought they hated it,
is nice. I mean, you mentioned it being softer, more of a bridge, and it really does then also lend itself to being an addition to a cocktail. And so, which is a nice way to also introduce people to it as a standalone spirit, where they maybe wouldn't naturally choose it for themselves, you know, at a bar or from the shelf. But then, you know, having it in a spirit, in a cocktail, and realizing like, oh, actually I do maybe enjoy this, and maybe I will try that independently. I think is a nice opportunity, because if you're kind of just like thrown a kind of more traditional, like heavy licorice,
right,
you're probably going to be like, no thanks, I'm good.
Yeah, and that's the thing about proof too. It's one of the decisions why we lowered the proof, is because the extractability at higher strength leads to more bitter medicinal character. And again, like the purists might look for that, because, you know, absinthe in its original intent of use was a medicinal spirit. So alcohol as a vessel to deliver botanical extraction. And so it wasn't unusual to be super bitter and super high proof because the extractability at higher strength alcohol is better. Like you get more extraction, but you also get a lot of bitter tannic qualities that come with it. And so like, how do you balance that effectively? And that's, we would try to, you know, look for that balance when we make spirits. So.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of your spirits, where, given the changing ABC laws that we've just been introduced here in the last couple of weeks, which I think are awesome, and I'd like some of them to stay after all of this is over. But where can folks find your spirits right now if they wanted to buy something?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have a variety of ways to, a variety of placements and opportunities to obtain our products through different channels. So the most direct way is because of the alcoholic beverage control relaxation of laws temporarily while we're sheltering in place, we are allowed to sell and ship online. That is a unprecedented move by the ABC. Of course, it'll get taken away as soon as the shelter in place is lifted, but we are enjoying that luxury today. It's something I think small distillers have been fighting for years, but the opposing lobbyists are really entrenched and powerful, and it's not likely, honestly, to change in the near future. We'll see, but I guess they probably said that about tasting rooms 3 years ago, and here we are now with, you know, multiple tasting rooms in Sonoma County and across the state at large. We are open for curbside pickup at our facility in downtown Hillsburg. So if someone wanted to look us up or give us a call, we can give them directions. They can come pick up during our limited hours of operation. We're shipping. So if someone wanted to order online, we have a button on our website that says store that they can click and order online. We have some partner retailers that are selling both locally. I won't name them just to play favorites on anybody, but we're also available there. And we have a section of our website about where to find us. And admittedly, even though it doesn't stay always super up to date, it's 80% correct. And so there are opportunities to find us up and down the state of California.
Great.
Now, so yeah.
Awesome. Yes, I know the ability to ship is probably going to go away, unfortunately, but I think it's a really awesome opportunity for the small independently owned and operated distilleries. And I hope that we can find some happy medium in the near future for everybody, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I can go into it, or I could just leave it where it is.
No, you can just leave it. I can only imagine. I mean, I know that there's so much that goes into that.
Right.
Yeah. So
one day.
So what is one of your, I mean, I'm sure it's hard to choose, but like, what's your go-to spirit from your guys' lineup? Like, you know, if you're going to make yourself a drink, what brand are you pulling off the shelf?
Yeah, that's the who's your favorite child question, which is there's never a good answer to it. I would say that I personally would go to the gin first. I think the gin has enough structure to work in cold season and warm season cocktails.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Winter season's always, like kind of, bourbon season or whiskey season, more or less. And, it's like, I'm still kind of phasing out of that. We've gone through a weather shift here in the last week that almost feels like, winter to summer overnight. So it's like, it's a weird transition right now.
I agree.
So it's like, it's putting down the paper plane and picking up the gin and tonic. But, I still enjoy the classic Negroni. I think that's a really fabulous balanced cocktail. But yeah, I think for right now, the gin is the go-to. But I'm like one of those people who just have emotional moods for different things at different times. It could be based on like what we're eating. It could be based on just like how the weather is outside. It could just be based on just pure attitude. Like, what do I just feel like having?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a little bit more, I guess, diverse in my choosing than just like kind of sticking with one thing. I think there's beauty in exploration, right? So it's always about, just picking something up and trying something new with it and seeing how it works, and
Yeah,
no harm from no foul. So
definitely. Are you guys getting crafty at home with your home cocktails? What are you making?
yeah, so we're actually not being too crafty. We're being sort of boring, but the Negroni and the paper plane are still staples in the household right now. You know, something I've been working on this whole last year is an Amaro product. So
Oh,
Amaro is, it's another botanical influenced spirit, heavily botanical influenced spirit,
yeah.
and so, you know, like having basically Amaro based cocktails or Amaro influenced cocktails are sort of high on my list right now, just to understand, you know, flavor
Yeah,
impact,
their
balance of
interaction.
character. Yeah, and so that's been a really fun project. So we originally
Fun.
had scheduled it to be released next month, but it's with the hand sanitizer production,
Yeah,
just pushed us back a little bit. So anyway,
sure.
TBD, soon to come. It's
TBD.
all approved. We have the labels sitting in the warehouse, but
How exciting. That's
no
gonna be
juice in the
fun.
bottle. Yeah, I'm really excited for it. I think it's I think it'll be a really fun product to have in our portfolio. So,
Yeah. And again, I think it's another really unique um, spirit that you don't see necessarily produced at like a craft level. I mean, I feel like you see kind of like larger, well-known brands that are producing it, but I mean, I'm not familiar with any kind of smaller productions, distilleries, which is cool. I think that's awesome to be able to add that to the portfolio.
yeah, it's exciting. So it also
Yeah.
gives us some more bench strength on making cocktails for our customers in the tasting room. So, you know,
Hmm.
having an Amaro as whether people just want to do like a low ABV cocktail, it's a really good solution for that because it has a
Hmm.
lot of character and lower alcohol content. But it also, you know, mixes well into other things, a lot of other things. So
Nice.
it'll allow us to build more vertically integrated cocktails, you know,
Very
in our
cool.
tasting room. So we're pretty
Oh,
excited
fun.
about it. Yeah.
I'm definitely looking forward to coming back into the tasting room here, hopefully soon, and having one.
Right? I know. I
Yeah.
think we're all ready. The big joke is anyone gonna know how to make a cocktail when this is all over? You know? We haven't shook cocktails for, you know, for our tasting room in so long. We're gonna
Right.
have to shake the cobwebs off, I think, on day one. So
Lots of practice, lots of practice.
that's right. Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
So,
Well, I think the one last question I have for you is, if somebody was interested in getting into this crazy business, what advice would you give them?
how long do we have? I know. I mean, it's a challenging, rewarding, fun industry to be a part of. Um, there are there's a lot of nuance to, I think, establishing a craft distillery and doing it well. I think at a macro level, for someone who is completely green going into the field, I I would highly encourage um, just a really realistic understanding of how the numbers could work, because
Sure.
it's like it's a business built honestly a lot of times on hope and dreams, and I would be lying if I say that we didn't have the same approach when we started, that we can just turn it on and, you know, push 20,000 cases a year on year one, and it's just totally not how the market is. Unfortunately, there's just not a lot of opportunity for small brands to get large distribution access to the market anymore. And so I think the successful distillery model today is based a lot around like how you can survive and thrive in an environment where you're not relying on revenue from the three-tier basically system.
Sure.
So like the tasting room model is, I think, a really great opportunity to be able to thrive and make a distillery work. The ability to offer knowledge and services to other businesses is, I think, something that people kind of find their way into after so much time, because there's a lot of capital investment that goes in up front that you have to basically pay back at some point. And then just taking time with recipe development and just understanding that it's not a flip the light switch business. It's not like running a website. Like the distribution's entirely different. The overhead's entirely different.
Right.
Just the time is entirely different. And the people, I think it's really appealing and glamorous and seems like really fun. Like who wouldn't want to just make spirits and make cocktails and like hang out with people all day long? And but the truth is that there's a lot of regulatory complexity, even at a local level. There's a lot of competition in the market. There's a lot of price competition. The big brands,
right.
are ruthless. And I think there's just a lot of expectations that have to be realistic on day one to start a distillery in 2020.
I think that's a really great point.
In order to thrive and survive. So
yeah.
that'd be my opening salvo. And of course, I can probably write a book on this at this point, but
maybe you should
leave it at that. Yeah, maybe in my next life. So
yeah, there you go. When you have some more time.
Exactly. So.
Well, thank you so much, Josh. I really appreciate you hopping on here today and chatting with me. It was a lot of fun. I always like catching up.
Likewise. Yeah. Good to talk to you. Hopefully we'll see you soon for the happy hour.
100%.
Cool.
Okay.
Right,
talk to you later.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye-bye.